Hello class and welcome to this Narc NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands. Just say no. Yes, they went out of their way to get vanity plate which says just say no to prove their commitment to getting drugs off the streets. Maybe not a vanity plate, but you know what I'm saying. They got that in a gift shop somewhere. Probably at the DEA's gift shop, I would assume. But yes, Narc, an NES port of an arcade game, so you know it's going to be tough. Specifically, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to go ahead and give Narc for the NES an 8 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to writing a threatening letter to the developer, in this case, Acclaim, technically, makers of the arcade game. We can't blame Rare for just porting this to the NES. I mean, I suppose we could, but that'd be a waste of time. Although this is an arcade title, so it does have a cheap difficulty, which gives it that 8. 1-ups are relatively easy to come by, though, so if you focus on point harvesting, you should be able to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to extra lives. Plus, we have some strategies to help you out with each level and each stretch of this game, as we always do right here on Video Games 101. Got all my TAs standing by with interesting information about this game. Speaking of which, this is a very short game, so before we get into the action, let's get some context as to what's going on here, even though I'm pretty sure I could figure it out for myself, from our resident fact finder, Fluff.
In Narc, we play as one of the two main characters in Max Force or Hitman. Yes, those are their actual names as they appear on their driver's licenses. Working for the Narcotics Opposition Bureau on a mission to apprehend Mr. Big, the head of an underground drug trafficking and terrorist organization. Drugs are the bread and butter, I guess. Terrorism, just a bit of fun on the side for Mr. Big and company. As is standard for Drug Enforcement Agency agents of the late 80s, you're equipped with an automatic weapon and a missile launcher to carry out the orders of Nancy Reagan. It even says, just say no on the plates of the Narc-mobile. Yes, that's our car's actual name. Fun fact, by the way, the famous Just Say No campaign slogan was purportedly improvised on the spot when the then First Lady was asked during a visit to Longfellow Elementary School in Oakland, California in 1982 by a student, what should she do if she was offered drugs by her peers? The First Lady responded, just say no.
How inspired. Thank you very much, Fluff. Alright, I think now that I know what's going on, we can get into this one. So let's run the intro and get into this Narc NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, before we get started, let's take a look at the controls for Narc for the NES. First thing you'll notice is that unaccountably B is jump, A is shoot. I hate that. Just want to go on record as saying that. Also note the difference between tapping and holding a button. If you tap B, you'll jump. That's a very important move, so make sure you know that. Hold B to duck, and then hold A to shoot, and just tap it to fire off a missile. As we take a look now at the Briggs notes for this Narc NES walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. First, bust enemies on this first stage and the beginning of stage 3. Mention that again on stage 3, but to bust an enemy, you just stand on top of them, they'll put their hands up and they'll disappear. Just watch out for the enemies firing in the background. And Blaze is going to talk about how much this is worth and why it's important, but this is just a great way to stock up on points, which you can redeem for 1-ups. Secondly, jumping is a great dodge. You'll see me doing it a lot. You can use it to avoid gunfire, avoid enemies who are just trying to rub up on you and cause damage. We'll talk about that moving forward. And lastly, follow this guide. Bit of a cop-out, and you might be thinking, well, obviously, but we've got tips to help you through every level while sustaining minimum damage, which sounds obvious, but it's the key to this whole game. If you don't shoot any enemies after the 3rd level, outside of maybe to pick up a key card or when you take on the final bosses, then you'll probably be in good shape. Speaking of which, the final boss in particular is basically impossible unless you know what to do, so Gary's going to walk us through that. Fluff's got some interesting information about this game, share with us a little bit later. But right now you can see we're doing that strategy, number 2, just jumping quite a bit, grabbing the safe key, and there's going to be dogs showing up here, so make sure you're ducking when you're firing. Even the dogs hate a Narc. But I mentioned Blaze earlier, so let's bring him in now to talk about the items of this game as we leave those drugs there for some small child to pick up. Blaze, how about those items?
Alright, let's talk about the practical items you can find from gunning down enemies on the streets in Narc. First, the bullets. This replenishes 25 bullets when you pick one up. Note that just because it sticks, or it looks like it tops off at 99, your bullet count, it actually goes above that. Just the display number caps off at 99, so don't be afraid to keep picking these up, even if you're showing 99. Next, we have missiles. This replenishes 5 missiles and gives you 200 points. And then we have the keys for the door. These are dropped by enemies that you shoot near the locked door, so don't expect to find these earlier on in the stage. You can go through the entire stage without shooting anyone until you get to the door, and then start shooting the nearby enemies to find that key.
Good call, Blaze. Yeah, we just saw it sitting there in the subway earlier for this first one, but that is the strategy a little bit later when you don't find the key, when an enemy has one. So right now we're just busting lots of enemies. This is a good place to do it, actually, the end of this first stage, which is right there at the end at that door that we'd use the key card on. This is probably the safest place to bust people because by the time you're down to your final life, which there is a 0 life, by the way, so when you have no helmet showing right there up at the top, that's how you know you're on your last life. So if you're about to lose your last life, getting low on health, then you can quickly duck out to the right and just redeem all your points. But speaking of points, let's bring him back in now to cover how much these busts are worth, different items you can pick up in terms of points to redeem for 1-ups.
Alright, a lot of your success in Narc might be dependent upon banking more extra lives, which you get at 100,000 points. So let's talk some points. First, you have stacks of cash which enemies drop between picking one up and then the points you get awarded at the end of the stage. A stack of cash is worth 1250 points. The drugs, nondescript drugs, maybe a bag of cocaine. All total, once again, between picking it up and the points you're awarded at the end of the stage you get 2,100 points per bag of drugs you pick up, nondescript drugs. And then finally, cannot be forgotten, busting the criminals in this game nets you 500 points, or 5,000 points, excuse me. So 20 of these nets you an extra life. That's versus only the 100 you get per killing. So clearly the US government is trying to herd you more, kind of influence you to do more busting than shooting, which is kind of surprising. You know, you think overworked penal system, but I digress. I'm sorry. Also note there's other things you can blow up, like in the drug lab, you can shoot some of the chemical pots or whatever they are. Shoot those things with rockets, get 25,000 points, but Professor will talk more about that. But yeah, if you want to bank some points, get some extra lives, that's the way to do it here in Narc.
Thank you, Blaze. You can see we're maxed out on lives now. 5 helmets is the max, so technically 6 lives, but I don't recommend stocking up on busts on this screen or this stage because these hypo men literally just throwing needles at us, but they're a bit more unpredictable than the level 1 guys that we've been busting, so that's why I generally recommend we just stick to levels 1 and early on in 3 when we just have those guys in the trench coats, the junkies, who have difficulty moving diagonally sometimes, I guess a product of the drugs. But yeah, just get through this level as quickly as possible. You can shoot these tanks for some points. But let's bring in Fluff now while we're working our way through here to bring us our first Fluff fact about the game of Narc.
Narc for the NES is a rare-developed 1990 port of the 1988 arcade game of the same name from Acclaim Entertainment. By the way, don't torture yourself and look up the graphics from the arcade version, as it will just depress you as to how much better it looks than this, and, oh, what, we just showed it? Oh well. Yeah, it's 1,000 times better visually than the NES version. Don't bother checking the math on that, it checks out. But it sounds a lot better too, and that's not a slight to one of our favorite composers here on Video Games 101 in David Wise, as he simply ported the existing arcade music to the console. Narc received additional ports outside of the NES on the Commodore 64, Atari ST, and Amiga, and the franchise was revived in 2005 with a new version of the game for Xbox and PS2. Ironically, and despite being billed as the first video game with a strong anti-drug message, the NES version features little to no depictions of or references to drugs themselves due to Nintendo's censorship policies of the time, which didn't allow the incorporation of illegal drugs in their games.
Thanks, Fluff. Yeah, compared to the arcade version in particular, it's pretty dry in that sense, but this is the third stage where I mentioned in the Briggs notes. This is the other good place to stock up on lives. So if you lost a couple lives in the last couple stages, not a bad time to bank some busts. 20 busts earns you an extra life. That's 100,000 points right there, so make sure that we have at least 20, because we're about to lose a life right here. Again, we max out with 4 helmets on the screen. By the way, once you get to the Narc Mobile, I still can't believe it's called that, over there on the right side, then you'll only have one enemy spawning at a time in this area, making it very safe. A little slower, obviously, for redeeming or collecting busts, but much safer if you want to bank them that way. So we can hit select to flip our car around, but yeah, go south of the dumpsters there. I guess that's the dumpster man right there. And yeah, we drive it as far as this wall of, I guess those are dumpsters. Doesn't seem like we're making a lot of progress with our little bar right there at the top. You can fire a rocket, by the way, as these helicopters are taking off, but I like to save my rockets for late in the game. Plus, it's very easy to avoid the bombs, which the helicopters drop. When you see one on the screen, just gonna jump and move back to the left to avoid taking any bomb damage there. So this stage just keeps going on like this. We'll get more Narc mobiles. I'm not sure why the DEA keeps financing them when we just keep crashing them in the dumpsters, but anyway, there'll be some dogs upcoming here, so watch out for them. But while we're continuing along here on the bridge, let's bring Fluff back in for another fact.
I mentioned the Just Say No slogan earlier. Well, speaking of arcade games, children of the 80s and 90s will undoubtedly remember the Winners Don't Use Drugs campaign, which intermittently displayed during many cabinets Attract mode, or the mode which cycled between the title screen and demo of the game when the cabinet was unoccupied. The Winners Don't Use Drugs slogan was announced in early 1989 by then FBI Director William S. Sessions as part of their drug awareness program meant to reach kids and teenagers. The PSA program was created in partnership with the American Amusement Machine Association, which agreed to require arcade video games to display the message, hitting the kids in their natural habitats. While many slogans were pitched, they eventually settled on Winners Don't Use Drugs for its double meaning to both gaming and life. The slogan was displayed across hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of cabinets around the US throughout the 90s until the campaign was phased out in 2000, as both interest in arcades as well as the war on drugs itself was waning in interest across the US. Still, at its peak, not only did the campaign and image at the very least get viewed by countless youths of the 90s, it also helped to identify the counterfeit arcade games which either didn't feature the message, the FBI seal, or the most up-to-date version of it. And while not nearly as ubiquitous as the Winners Don't Use Drugs slogan, some children of the 90s might also remember the Recycle It, Don't Trash It campaign, which was also displayed on some cabinets.
I do remember, well, I don't remember the recycle as clearly. I don't remember that logo, but yes, do remember. Not sure why those dogs kind of revert to puppies when we shoot them. I guess, obviously Nintendo wasn't going to let us kill animals, but it's like we have Shredder's regression ray or whatever it is that turned the turtles back into baby turtles. Yeah, I definitely remember going into arcades and seeing on a lot of cabinets that Winners Don't Do Drugs or Use Drugs slogan and everything. I don't know, it just sort of all rolls into the mystique of arcades for me when I was a kid. Just loud sounds, dark room, flashing lights and everything. I don't know, it was an epic environment to be in as a kid, so it's all blurred together. But I love this nightclub exit, just like a door on the side of the bridge. Where would this lead, realistically? Like underneath the bridge? Having some Frank Reynolds and Charlie Kelly like parties down there. Anyway, moving on to the adult books. Really testing the boundaries of those Nintendo censorship policies there. Got killer clowns all bloodied up. Again, strategy, the best strategy is just to keep doing the jump to avoid damage. And an extra tip right here on this stage is to keep 2 enemies on the screen at all times, because oftentimes if you only have 1 enemy on the screen, a pink convertible will race down and try to run you over, which does some decent damage. So we're going to go into this last door on the right. We got some more of these dumpster men hanging about. We want to get the key card right here. And then be very careful when you leave. I want to make sure I have a little bit of breathing room because it's very easy once you leave to keep holding up and then re-enter this door. So there you go. Just be careful when you're leaving. And then insert the key card, and very quick level right there. A lot of very quick levels upcoming here, including Sergeant Sky High. They had some fun with this game, I can tell. People at Acclaim. Here you just want to move with these guys. They only have 2 on the screen at once, and if you're not in line with them, then no more of them will spawn and you won't take damage. So we're already done the first half of this one, so now we have one of these guys at a time will basically keep charging us. So want to jump as soon as one leaves the screen and start moving kind of up or down to make sure you avoid getting hit. And now we need to kill one of these guys to get the green card key. Not these guys, these guys. So might probably be this guy maybe. There you go. All right. And then insert that card, and another super fast level, and we're looking pretty good on lives right now. I mentioned you want to stock up on missiles. We're finally at Mr. Big's, I guess the outside of Mr. Big's HQ right here. Fanny and Company. Okay. Same rule applies here. Keep at least 2 enemies on the screen for the entirety of moving left to right here. And you can see that guy on the top can't even... No, stay. Hang out. There you go. He can't even hurt you from where he's throwing his little dynamite. Trying to keep 2 guys on the screen at once here, just to keep those cars from spawning and running us down. Pretty sneaky. Finally found a use for the crouch command outside of taking on those dogs, obviously. Alright, I love the way those clowns, the kinky pinkies or whatever, I don't know. They assert themselves when they pop on the screen. Big Bank. Mr. Big International. Alright, be careful when we're heading inside here. See, we have virtually 0 of that temporary invincibility you get in a lot of games when you take damage, you know, that sort of benefit of the doubt moment when you're just have that split second of invincibility. Here, enemies can just lay on a lot of damage in a very short span of time, especially the ones that get up on you with melee weapons, so be very careful. But once again, in the Quack lobby, just jumping through, we already have the next few safe card keys here. Got a message from HQ. Mr. Big's office is impenetrable. We're on our own from here. When have we not been on our own? I'm sorry. When you dropped us in via helicopter at the start of the bridge, when you could have just as easily dropped us off at the end. We arrested a few people, I guess, but we didn't do much with Dumpster Man. Again, we already have the card key. As soon as you walk up to the insert point there on all these screens, it just freezes, which is nice. You don't have to worry about getting hit while all the chaos is around you. Still just jumping through. I have to assume this is a standard operating procedure for the DEA. There you go. Busted one guy, by mistake actually, I think. Alright. Actual final level right here. Well, sort of. Last conventional level right here with enemies. Where we have our first boss. Finally bringing Gary. It's been a while. In fact, it's been forever. We haven't seen... Ooh, the dog just maul us to death right there. Good for them. I don't know about that wallpaper. I'm sorry. I feel like I should have mentioned that way sooner. I'm sure everyone noticed it as soon as we entered this building, but that is... It's so trippy. It's like one of those Magic Eye posters. Very good reference for this game for the 90s. Mr. Big just hoping we'll get lost in it as his henchmen shoot us up. But no pun intended. Speaking of Mr. Big, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, Mr. Big. Apparently just a guy in a wheelchair, but he's been pushing drugs to kids, so gotta fire some rockets at him. You want to stay on the right side and note his kind of diamond movement that he does in and out, up and down, left and right. Just note that pattern. Fire missiles. When you got a good line, you know where he's gonna be. 3 missiles, takes him down. Every time you hit him, he's gonna kind of wiggle off the screen and come back again, so keep that in mind. But the third one, finally take him down.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that wiggle. Looks like a mackerel that just got off the line or something. Or we just took it off the hook. It's flopping around on the boat. But anyway, wheelchair or not, you sell drugs to kids, presumably. So you got to be put down for that. So he'll wriggle and wiggle for a little bit before he'll give up his gold card. And you'll notice there with that last hit that we got in, if you hit an enemy which is like right next to him instead of him, just by proximity, it will still hit him. So kind of a useful technique for some of the slower moving enemies when they're right next to him. You might stock up on a few more rockets. We're good with 33 at this point though. It's all about how you use them, and Gary's got some tips on how to use them on this final boss here. Get an extra life? Nope. That's fine. All right. Final boss, Gary, take us home.
Boss Beaters.
Alright, Mr. Big in his true form, I don't know what the heck this is. Mecha Big? Anyway, it's kind of tricky. You want to jump and shoot the eyes like we show. It can be very difficult, with the missile, by the way. It can be difficult to line this shot up, but just see what we're doing here, basically. And after you've gotten the sunglasses off and him down to his skeleton form, just keep shooting him in the eyes. Then you want to retreat to the right side, get some distance between yourself and the boss, get that machine gun out, and then line up like we show. Fire those bullets when that neck bends and extends. If the boss corners you, just jump through, move to the other side. You'll get through without too much trouble. Good luck.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, don't get too high. Get to the top of the screen and your bullets won't even hit them. So I find, yeah, if you step on this line right here and just get the timing right, and we just jump through them like Gary mentioned. Give yourself a little distance there. They can be a little picky about, especially when you get them down this low, as to where these bullets need to be in the cycle, but might just need to reposition a little bit. There we go. Just step down a little bit to give yourself the right spot for taking down those remaining bones there. Best part of the game now, that hero strut. Max Force knows he helped some kids today. MBI, Mr. Big International. Now, Max Force International. Maybe we don't radio this one in. Thankfully, Hitman's not here to be the moral compass like he always is. Yeah, I'm going to keep all this 24 karat gold, all these bars. These are all going straight into Max Force's retirement fund, which I think retirement day is today, actually, now that I think about it. Godspeed, Hitman. Keep those streets safe. I'm retiring to a private island in the Caribbean. Alright, not as much money as I thought it would be. If I'm equating points to dollars, but whatever. Good enough to maybe take a couple years off, if nothing else. Contact your local DEA recruiter. You know there were a couple kids who were like, I'll heed the call. Well, anyway, that's our time for this week. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to Video Games 101 to enroll in these classes. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. Love to have you enrolled. Click that like button as well. Really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Have you played this one on the NES or the arcade? And yeah, if you did, you know how much better the arcade version is. But there you go. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.